How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be taking you guys through my blank Gameweek 36 team selection. To start off the video, as we usually do, I'll be taking you guys through my current double Gameweek 35 point score. I know that there are still fixtures happening tonight. That United vs Liverpool game is going to be absolutely stacked with players from our own FPL teams, and I'm pretty sure your captain is also going to be playing in that game. But we'll be looking at my current rank and where we're sitting currently in the game week before those fixtures happen tonight. I then will be touching on my transfer plan, which this week might involve taking 1 or 2 hits as we look to field 11 players for this upcoming blank game week. And then I'll be looking at my team selection with no transfers made as of yet and what my current plans are for captaincy. A little bit of a reminder here, a little bit of a plug for that Friday night deadline. If you guys are forgetful, this is your reminder to please pay attention to the deadlines, as I don't want any tears in my Twitter DMs about how you didn't make your squad or make the changes that you wanted to. But with that being said, let's get straight into the video. So as I mentioned, going over a quick review of double game week 35, and as I mentioned, this is before those fixtures obviously tonight. So if you guys are watching this video on Friday, just know that this is the score before those games, before you tune my 82 points currently. So hopefully with the players playing tonight, we can get into that 100-point club. I think this will be about the second or third time this season, if memory serves me right. But hopefully you guys, if you haven't already hit the 100-point club, hopefully you do tonight. But going over the rank boost, we had a little bit of a green arrow, currently sitting at just below that 33k mark, and I'm expecting hopefully some bigger boosts, but it's all going to come down to that captain Mo Salah tonight. If he outperforms Bruno Fernandes, then I think that we will get an even bigger green arrow, but if he doesn't, I think a red arrow could be in the locker there, and that'll be quite disappointing. But going over the lineup, we'll be going through every player and then just touching on maybe expectations for the games tonight and what we kind of think is going to happen. But starting off, we have Mendy in goal for Chelsea, and now those 11 points aren't a representation of 2 fixtures, unfortunately. Last night he was benched against Arsenal. I don't really think you can blame Kepa too much for the goal they conceded against Arsenal, because I think it was on more Jorginho's shoulders than Kepa's shoulders, but I was quite disappointed when I saw Mendy not starting and he was on the bench. But 11 points, that came from the first match obviously then, and he managed to get a penalty save, which is absolutely stellar, and I really needed him to pull it out the bag when Chelsea had such tough fixtures. So saving Aguero's a little bit of a dink, a little bit of a chip, whatever you want to call it, but he managed to stand tall and save that, which resulted in 11 points from that first game with those bonus points included. And then we also had Rudiger, who unfortunately they did concede against Man City in the first fixture. And then I mean, Rudiger wasn't even on the bench last night, so I don't really know what's happening him. I don't know if it was an injury, maybe he was just rested, but I don't really understand if he wasn't injured why he would be off the bench. And I think on the bench they had a youngster, a young defender, so I mean he could have just filled that spot. So maybe he is carrying a little bit of a knock, a little bit of an injury. But in terms of Rudiger, he is on the chopping block this week, because obviously with that whole rotation of Chelsea's backline, I don't even know if he's going to be starting the upcoming game weeks. I'm then going to talk about Lowton before Phillips, because Lowton has finished. He only had 1 fixture this week, and that was against Fulham, and luckily he managed to keep a clean sheet. Unlucky not to maybe get 1 bonus point. I think he was about 1 bonus point lower than the last player. I think it was Charlie Taylor that picked up a bonus point. Right decision to play Lowton, it looked like, in the first fixture against Fulham, managing to keep that clean sheet over someone like a Rob Holding. But then what do Arsenal go do? They keep a clean sheet last night against Chelsea, which was not predicted. A little bit annoyed though, because it seems like David Luiz is still out injured, and that's kind of the reason that I didn't go for Rob Holding, because Arteta said that David Luiz was back in training before that Europa League game, that he was going to be playing in the near future, and then what happens? He gets a prolonged injury and he doesn't even start the next couple. But I'm not going to put all my blame on Arteta for that. It's my own decision to kind of play a double game week player on the bench. But Rob Holding obviously picking up 9 points. They got a bonus point last night for that clean sheet against Chelsea, so maybe I should have benched Rudiger and played Rob Holding instead, just to take advantage of those fixtures. But I kind of thought in these 2 fixtures that Arsenal would concede. The first game, that's exactly what happened against West Bromwich Albion, but then the second game was kind of the one that might be a little bit of a surprise, because if they're conceding to West Brom, you probably thought they concede to Chelsea, but I think they might have got a little bit lucky in the end there. But I'm not really complaining as a Liverpool fan in that top 4 push. And then you also have Phillips, who started at that that centre-back position. I was a little bit surprised to maybe see that those Kabak rumours were true, and he actually is out injured. Now, we don't really know the length of that, whether he's going to be out for the rest of the season or maybe it's just one fixture, but he also won't be starting tonight against United. I think Phillips will play tonight. I just don't know if it's going to be a clean sheet for both sides. I think I can see some goals in this one, as United probably will park the bus and Liverpool have to win, so they're going to be going all out attack. So maybe Phillips can get a clean sheet, but I'm not too confident there. And in terms of the attacking returns, Phillips on those corners, even though he's such a good defensive header of the ball, from an offensive point of view, he's just shocking. I mean, it almost looked like when they had a Liverpool corner, he was defending the corner instead of attacking it, because there were some headers that I thought he could have scored against Southampton. But I'm not really going to complain there because he managed to get a clean sheet. The midfield, we had some really good performers and maybe some lower performers. First off, we'll talk about Diego Jota. Only the 3 points here because of that clean sheet point against Southampton, but he doesn't look like he's on that great of form. He came off for Firmino, and I reckon tonight Klopp will go for a similar lineup that he showed when this game was meant to happen in Gameweek 34, where Jota's on the bench and he goes for a front three of Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, and then also Roberto Firmino. But Jota off the bench, not the worst in the world. He's had some good scores off the bench for Liverpool this season, so maybe tonight against United he can kind of replicate that. Then the next player is Rashford, who played the first game against Aston Villa, and then he managed to pick up an assist, I think. Definitely not a goal, because he would have had more points. I think it was just the assist for Rashford. Happy with that, but obviously didn't outperform Bruno Fernandes, which I thought that he might have been able to, but then obviously Bruno got the penalty, as he usually does, and that's what he managed to get the points for. But with Rashford, he also didn't play against Leicester in the midweek, so I definitely think he'll be starting tonight. And against Liverpool, he always likes playing against Liverpool, and he's been quite successful in the past, so I am expecting kind of a moderate chance of getting some points here from the United winger. Then going on to the two players that managed to score the most points. First off, Mo Salah. I just got an assist in the first game against Southampton, but the chances Mo Salah missed would have had you tearing out your hair as a Salah captain, and that's exactly why I'm bored right now, because he was so annoying to own during that Southampton game. Missed so many one-on-ones, chances, big chances that he could have scored, and as a Salah captain, I really needed him to perform over a Bruno Fernandes, but unfortunately it was just one of those days where Mo Salah gets 10 chances, but he doesn't score any of them. Then the standout player of this game week, and that's going to be Greenwood, who started the Aston Villa game, also started the Leicester game, and scored in both of those fixtures. So 18 points is an absolutely massive haul there. A little bit annoyed at myself, maybe not captaining Greenwood, but I honestly thought that I'd go a little bit different, go for a Mo Salah, and with the chances Salah had against Southampton, I'm not too annoyed about that, because I think the thinking behind it might have been good. Whether he starts tonight against Liverpool is yet to be seen. I personally think that he'll probably come off the bench for the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on how the fixture's playing out, but I mean 18 points. I'm always going to take that from a little bit of a differential going into this double game week 35. In terms of the front line, it was mass disappointment, unfortunately, in game week 35, the double, with Vardy, Iheanacho both returning about similar points, Iheanacho only besting him by 2, but I mean Vardy and Iheanacho against a heavily rotated United side just seemed to be off the pace. I mean, Iheanacho was snatching at some chances outside the box, Vardy completely looked out of it, was missing runs in behind, and I don't really know what to explain about Leicester as a whole, because they seem to be crumbling as they might do towards the end of the season, and that's why Vardy, Iheanacho, I'm not too keen on owning them for the upcoming game weeks, just because I think the form's out of there for Leicester, and also I think in terms of the fixtures, they don't improve much. And then finally, the mega disappointment was Harry Kane, but I'm not really blaming Harry Kane too much, because the goal that he scored was ruled offside, and I think about his toenail was ruled offside, so I don't really understand that one. But unfortunately with VAR, sometimes these decisions go for you, sometimes these decisions don't, and unfortunately this was just one of those cases where the decision didn't come in our favor. So unfortunately just the 2 points, and why that's quite annoying is throughout the whole week I was talking about maybe going Heung-min Son, going for Harry Kane out and bringing in a DCL, looking at a Bruno Fernandes, and it seems like those transfers would have been the best ones to go for. And by keeping Harry Kane, I kind of just hope against Wolves that he can return the patience we've showed with him. On the bench, nothing much to talk about there, just Forster getting a penalty save as well. So if I managed to bench boost, I would have been super happy this week, but unfortunately I used that chip for about 8 points, I think it was, a couple of game weeks ago. So Forster, Mendy both getting penalty saves. Was the right choice to play Mendy though, as he managed to get 1 more point. But the sad thing about Forster is because he started both fixtures in blank game week 35, this basically means that he probably won't start in blank game week 36, and that's what I kind of wanted him to. I wanted him to be benched in the second fixture, and then he would play the game week 36, because that seems to be what the Southampton manager is doing. He's kind of rotating his keepers, and now that means McCarthy is going to play in blank game week 36. That's going to kind of be a decision we talk about a little bit later on when we look at the team selection. And then we obviously also have Cody with just 1 point, and then Holding with that nice little haul of 9 points, rooted firmly to second place on my bench. But now let's go on and talk about my transfer plans. So my transfer plans this week, I do have 2 free transfers, so I am considering taking a -4 hit as I mentioned in the introduction. But the 2 transfers that I am confirmed, basically, these haven't been made yet as Everton do play tonight, so I just want to see that Lucas Digne and DCL get out of that game injury free. But I'm probably going to be making 3 transfers this week. The first 2, as I mentioned, confirmed. It's going to be Jamie Vardy, it's going to be Rudiger out, and I'm going to bring Lucas Digne and then Calvert-Lewin in. Because of that lovely Sheffield United game, I think this should be a good result for Everton, and that's why I kind of want to target that fixture. And in terms of short-term punts, kind of now towards the end of the season is where you take those short-term punts, so I'm perfectly comfortable with going with those Everton assets, even though in game week 38 they do face Man City. Then the second transfer that I am considering, this will either be taking Iheanacho out on one case, and then I'll probably be looking at someone like a Bamford. Spoke about him in the preview yesterday, which budget striker to go for. I think Bamford is where you guys should be looking because of those lovely fixtures that Leeds do have in these last 3 game weeks. But then the next transfer that I could do is also take out Rashford and then either bring in Heung-min Son or go for MAHREZ. So MAHREZ is the one that's kind of lighting up my eyes at the moment, because if I do bring in MAHREZ, I think that I probably will captain him. I just prefer MAHREZ over FODEN. That's something that you guys have to kind of decide yourselves. I think that MAHREZ probably has the better chance of maybe getting a return than FODEN does, but I still think that both of those options should be good. It's probably going to be one of those decisions that unfortunately comes down to budget. So if you guys can't afford a MAHREZ, then maybe consider going for a FODEN. But if you can, I think that MAHREZ slightly edges it for me in terms of the Man City attacker. But I do think that FODEN and MAHREZ both will play, especially because Pep Guardiola has said that Kevin De Bruyne hasn't recovered from that injury. So I think they're going to need an extra boost against Newcastle to maybe get a couple of goals. So that would probably be the transfer that I am looking at. But Heung-min Son is definitely the more safe option to go for, because obviously Spurs do have good fixtures, and also Heung-min Son is nailed in that lineup, so I don't really have to rotate that much. So as I mentioned, basically 2 transfers that are confirmed. The 2 Everton assets coming in, Lucas Digne and Calvert-Lewin. And the third transfer for a -4 hit might be Rashford or Iheanacho out, and then I'm either looking at Heung-min Son, Riyad Mahrez, or Patrick Bamford. So now going on to the team selection for game week 36, and as I said, I haven't made any transfers yet. So what I did was I went over to FPL.team, and they kind of allow you to see your squad and plan your squad and your transfers for the upcoming game week. So this is going to be with those 2 transfers confirmed, basically Lucas Digne, Calvert-Lewin in, and this is the current starting 11 that I currently have. Probably should mention starting 10. I've included Iheanacho here, but that could just be Rashford, and just keep that in mind that whichever player I bring in will be in the starting 11. So going off Forster in goal, as I mentioned when we went over the team review, I don't think Forster's going to start in this one, but I just can't bring myself to taking a -4 hit for a goalkeeper. I just don't think the upside is too high on that case. The ceiling for a goalkeeper isn't usually that high unless maybe they get a penalty save, as we saw with Mendy or Forster last week. But I just think taking a -4 hit at this stage of the season isn't the smartest decision in my opinion. But in the back line, we have a 4 at the back with Lucas Digne, Phillips, Lowton, and Cody. Not really confident in Lowton and Cody getting clean sheets, so basically whatever points they return are bonus. But then I think with Phillips and Lucas Digne, there could be a good chance of getting a clean sheet, especially against Sheffield United. With Phillips, I don't know, I just think against West Bromwich Albion, with them officially being relegated, I think they're going to play a little bit more free-flowing football, a little bit more attacking football, and I think a player like a Matheus Pereira could be on the receiving end of some attacking returns. So if you guys do own him, maybe consider playing him as well. So Phillips, not really that much confidence there in a clean sheet, but I definitely think that that new addition of Lucas Digne should shore up our defense a little bit. And then going into the midfield and the forward department, things are looking a lot better. So we got Lingard against Brighton. Now that West Ham Brighton game, I'm kind of predicting it to be quite close. We have news that Veltman is going to be out of this upcoming game against West Ham. So that means that they've lost Dunk and they've lost Veltman. But the thing about Brighton is I think most of the defenders are quite assured, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. But that definitely does open the doors for maybe a West Ham asset like a Lingard or an Antonio to do quite well. But then we have the Liverpool assets with Salah and Jota. Now I don't know if Salah's going to start, Jota's going to start, but if I was confident, it probably would be more on Salah, because I think with that whole golden boot scenario and Liverpool having to win the last couple games to get that top 4 spot, I do think they'll go with their strongest 11 every single game week, and I think that means Salah in, maybe Jota rotated. But we'll see how the game plays out tonight against United. But it's kind of been a theme. Whenever team plays, it does get rotated in that front line, but maybe this week could be an exception, and maybe a Firmino starts both game weeks and Jota comes off the bench in both. Then in the front line, Calvert-Lewin, new addition against Sheffield United, great chance of getting points there. And then obviously Harry Kane, who I hope bangs because I really need the points at this stage of the season, with him kind of keeping a 2-point appearance against a lead side that I think he could have got more returns out of. As I mentioned, Iheanacho, Rashford, just sub whoever I bring into the squad. In terms of captaincy, I've mentioned MAHREZ as maybe a potential option to go for, and I do think that I've kind of always been on a Man City asset. The only thing that's a little bit superstitious is that you never captain a player in the first match of a game week, and unfortunately Man City face Newcastle on Friday evening. So as I mentioned, a little bit of superstition there, but if I had to kind of pick another option, I think that I would prefer going a Salah or a DCL over a Harry Kane, as I just don't know about that Wolves Spurs game. I think that it might be closer than maybe people are expecting. So that's going to wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new and have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow in a Deadline with Dayvy live stream, probably about half an hour before the deadline comes about. I'll be signing off. This has been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.